It's Misty with On the Bit magazine, and today I'm discussing They Call Me Starlight. This book is by Dawn Smith, and it's about Tiffany Smith, who's the girl that's on the cover, and her horse Starlight. If you followed On the Bit, Tiffany did an article for us a little while back about losing her heart horse Lola and how Starlight came to be. It was so good. Tiffany's just got like this sweet spirit about her. She just seems like such a sweet girl. I've never met her in real life, but she just seems like the kind of person that you just be best friends with, you know? So I was really excited to get this book whenever it was published and read it. So I'm going to go ahead and read the synopsis here. What is to be done with a horse that is unpredictable, even dangerous? Why is the horse acting this way? Is there any way to overcome such challenges? This is the true story of Starlight, a thoroughbred retired from the racetrack, and Tiffany, a young woman seeking the horse of her dreams after devastating loss. Told from Starlight's point of view, it's a journey through dark emotions and physical challenges to eventually regain strength, confidence, and happiness. It is a tale of bond between horse and human that is beneficial to both in overcoming anxiety, depression, sadness, grief, anger, and fear. With photos to illustrate this true story, you will find it easy to read but hard to put down, and that is so true. It was so sweet and good, and I loved it. If I was rating this book like I would a movie, I would rate it E for everyone. It's so sweet, and I don't think that there's any age limit to it, so you'd be safe letting your kids read this one. And again, if you've not been part of our book discussions, we've started doing an ongoing book discussion. So if you've read this book and you'd like to tell us about your comments or your point of view on it, your favorite parts, things that kind of stood out to you, leave it in the comments and we'll do an ongoing book discussion about it. So some of the Amazon reviews for this book. They Call Me Starlight is a special book that touched my heart. It educated me about the humbleness of horses and the fragility of happiness in life. I love the potential insight into the thoughts of this beautiful animal and for the realization that trauma, anxiety, sadness, and grief is universal to all of God's creatures. The book encourages an introspective look into not only our own actions and reasons for them, but also to extend mercy to each other. Starlight's story helps one recognize the miracles in our lives and God's hand in them. A beautiful and touching real-life story, well-written and easy to read, a very worthwhile and enjoyable read. Anyone who's a horse lover will really be able to relate to it. You can really feel the pain and healing that is expressed in this book. A must read. I love this story because it helped me understand the emotions and mannerisms of a horse. I have not been around many horses. In fact, I would say I have a healthy respect for them. Tiffany has a heart of gold to be this patient with this broken mare, or with this broken horse. She never gives up and the results speak for themselves. I'm glad there are places like Secretariat Center that I did not know about before reading this book. I enjoyed the read. Right now it's got a 5-star rating and I gave it a 5-star rating. I thought it was so good. So the thing with this book is that it's written from the point of view of Starlight. So Dawn kind of says that there's some conjecture in there and I don't know. I think she does a really good job of, you know, because horses speak to us and we just don't slow down to listen to them. And I think she did an excellent job of putting things from Starlight's point of view. I'm going to stop at this point just for a second to say that this is a book discussion. This is not a book review. So if you have not read this book, there are some spoilers in here because we go kind of chapter to chapter, sort of, just kind of hitting on big points and stuff. So if you haven't read this book, don't watch this video yet. Go read the book and then come back and tell us what you think about it. So save this video for later. Otherwise, if you're okay with spoilers and you don't really care, then by all means, keep watching. If there's one area of being an equestrian that I am not familiar with, it's racing. And the reason for that is I realize that there's a lot of good trainers and owners and jockeys and the whole teams out there. I know there's good equestrians everywhere, but there's so much mistreatment, and I know horses that have run with injuries, and I've heard a lot of really bad stories about racing, and it's not one that I typically support. Now, that being said, I don't know how much of Secretariat is true, but like that kind of treating horses with love and respect like that, I can totally get behind. And then when they run their race, then it's like, yeah, but I know there's a lot of horses out there that run and they are either abused or mistreated because they're not winners. But that's a long story or a long discussion for another day. But yeah, I know that's not the case for every horse, and there's some owners, jockeys, and teams that genuinely care about more than winning a race, but I'm sure they're few and far between. So, but that being said, I had no idea that there was such a thing called a claims race, where the horse is claimed by a different owner at the end of every race. That kind of made me a little bit sad, just because the horse is constantly being moved from home to home to home, and there's no security there. So that made me really sad. On page 6, she says, I was worth something to humans when I might win them money or give them a foal. Ultimately, I became useless. And this just paints the perfect reason why we as humans don't deserve horses. We view them as something that we own or something that can make us money. We don't view them as a sweet soul, but only care what they can do for us, not what we can do for them. And even just by the end of the first chapter of this book, I knew I was going to cry a lot. And I did. There were a few times that I teared up, and I kind of figured out that, sometimes when I'm at work between patients, I'll pick up my book, and I don't like to cry at work in front of people, so I had to not read this at work. I would not recommend. In chapter 2, I thought this chapter was a great parallel to humans who have issues with anxiety, but most eye-opening was this quote. The horses here tell me that what they want to find is a human who loves them and will adopt them, but they use, meaning humans using horses. And I thought how true that was. And, the older you get, the more prevalent you are aware of it being that way. When you're a child, you kind of have this golden view of the world, and, the older you get, you realize that there's a lot of really good people out there, but there's a lot of really bad people out there too. So it made me happy knowing that Tiffany chose her, she chose Tiffany, and it was like two sweet souls connecting, and I really loved that. Chapter 3 really got me. I thought, it's true, horses choose their people, and even just knowing Tiffany a bit, and only for a short time, she just comes across as the sweetest soul. Starlight was lucky to find her, and vice versa. It's really true that a lot of us just buy a horse to work for us. We don't actually all take the time to just let them be and build trust. And, sometimes when you buy a horse, there's like a genuine connection immediately. And, with my horse, within 2 weeks, we were going to our first show. I hadn't showed in 16 years, and he was such a good boy. But the majority of us don't really give them time to adjust and realize that it's just like adopting a dog or rescuing a dog. It takes time. It takes weeks sometimes for them to adjust to a new area, a new human, that kind of stuff. When we get to the part about Lola, I had a hard time not tearing up, because knowing her story about her being struck by lightning, and Tiffany having only had her for a little bit of time, and knowing that just how heartbreaking that kind of situation would be. And I was at work when I read it, so I really had to rein it in, because that was the last thing that I wanted to do, was be a blubbery mess in front of my coworkers. And then, knowing my luck, somebody would call me for a patient, and I'd be all blotchy and all the things. So I've never lost a horse, but the thought of losing Tino just absolutely breaks my heart. I've lost a dog who was like my baby, and that was very traumatizing. So I can kind of put myself in her shoes a little bit, but not really. Horses are amazing in that they can put the pieces of our broken hearts together, and I just think that they're just so magical in that way. Chapter 8, when Bandit meets the little boy that Tiffany took care of as a patient, I couldn't help but be in awe of how God works things out for the ones he loves. I thought this was so sweet. There's nothing else to explain this story. First, Starlight is literally everything that Tiffany dreamed up as a child come to life, and then to make room for her to be in Tiffany's life. Bandit finds a new home with a family that Tiffany took care of as a nurse. And I thought that was too many coincidences to leave to chance, and that God definitely had his hand in it. Too many things kind of fell into place too perfectly. When Tiffany starts working with Starlight in chapter 9, it was like a moment for me, because I never would have thought that, oh, a racehorse would have problems with crossfiring and not being able to go in a different direction. She's used to running counterclockwise. So it was just like, that's so common sense, but not anything that I would have ever thought of if I bought a thoroughbred off the track. I thought just another indication that when you have a horse that seems to be acting up, there's usually a deeper reason there. Whether or not we're willing to dig and find out the problem is what will make that horse successful in life and us successful as horsemen and women. The clicker training thing and line dancing sounded like fun. And I think I might try it with Tino. I think he loves treats and he loves to eat. So maybe, I don't know. But I thought that was a cute little thing. Just a thought, reading the first few pages of chapter 10, and I don't know if anybody else could see this, but can anyone see a parallel to a kid in the foster system? That's all I could think about when Starlight was talking about the instability in life because of the constant changes of going from owner to owner after every race. I just wondered if anybody else kind of caught that little connection there. When I came here, I felt hopeless, unable to see a way to overcome my anxiety. I know now that controlling anxiety is not a solo process. It takes friends and time and support, and now I have friends. Wow, I thought how true that quote was. Anxiety is something that is so hard to deal with, and I feel like the older you get, the more prevalent it is. Just because you have so much more things and so many more balls in the air and so many more people that you have to talk to, and you have to adult, and it just, it's a lot sometimes. Anxiety, let's see, it can be completely overwhelming. Just completely. There's nothing better to treat it than a good hype friend who makes you feel like you can overcome anything. I love the sentence that Dawn added in later. I have the power to change my response to things that make me nervous. This is a powerful revelation, and I'd say so. I've never really thought of it that way myself. The part about Remy ripped my heart out because I did the same thing when I lost my girl Shelby in 2017. She was my absolute world. I loved her so much, and I remember that day like it was yesterday. But being able to have my horse and be able to bury my face in his neck and just cry, like, horses are the absolute best friends. They don't tell your secrets. They just let you get everything off your chest. You can say anything to them, and they just stand there and take it all from you. And they're always there when you need them, and there's just no better friend in the world to have than your horse. Then I got to chapter 7, and I was like, what? I mean, did I not just talk about the parallels of foster kids? That was one thing that I didn't know about Tiffany, was that she was a foster parent, and I was absolutely floored when I read that part. I mean, who better to have a foster kid than a horse has been through the same kind of trauma and came out on the other side of it. So, and again, the horse will keep secrets, so they're a great therapist. They're a lot cheaper than a therapist. But yeah, overall, I thought it was such a sweet book, and I love that it was written from Starlight's point of view. If you continue reading past the end of the story and the note from the author, she states that the events in the story are all true. Much of the dialogue came from actual emails, messages, and journal entries. And personally, I love being able to look back on my life and seeing God's hand moving me through it. Just kind of guiding and directing and bringing people in and taking people out. And you can definitely see it in this book. I thought that it was a refreshing direction to move in, writing from the point of view of the horse. It just teaches us that each horse indeed does have a voice if we'll just slow down and listen. So Dawn and Tiffany, if you're ever watching this for some reason, I thought this was a great book. I would love to read a story about Tiffany's point of view. So maybe someday we can do a parallel or, a compare and contrast. But yeah, if you loved this book, let me know what you thought of it. Let me know what your personal stories are, or the parts in the book that were your favorite. You can leave all that stuff in the comments below, and then we'll continue to discuss it. So thanks for watching.